Okay, so I know that I don't normally make videos like this, but after watching It Follows, it sort of felt necessary. What is up, you guys? My name is Elias and I love movies. And what I want to do today is talk about a film that I really enjoyed. Not gonna lie to you guys, I've seen it about 4, maybe 5 times now, and truth be told, every time I watch it, it gets better and better. In no way am I saying that what I think is right. I feel like everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I just want to share mine. I think it's obvious that I will be giving a lot of spoilers. I'm just gonna try to explain a few pinpoints throughout the movie that I thought stood out and sort of backs up my theory. Does that make sense? So with all of that said, what do you say we go ahead and get started? Let's talk about It Follows. 1, 2, 3.
Guerra Movie House!
Okay, so like I was saying before, I really did enjoy this movie, but I also understand why some people wouldn't. I feel like instead of trying really hard, it keeps everything pretty simple. I'm also not gonna lie to you guys, I think that the plot of the story is sort of stupid, but I admire it because it doesn't feel stupid while you're watching the movie. Or at least it sounds stupid whenever you try to explain it to someone. Somebody is possessed with a demon and the only way to pass it is to have sex with someone else. And once they have sex with someone else, they pass that demon, and then that person starts to see spirits or demons, or an essence, and it's always constantly following you, and if it catches you, it kills you, and if it does kill you, then it goes back to the person that gave it to you. And then the demon or the spirit starts following them till it kills them. The only way to not kill them is for that person to have sex with someone else, and so on and so on. I mean, seriously, you tell that to someone and they will most likely look at you like you're dumb. But after watching this movie, it doesn't feel dumb, it feels horrifying. I also know that a lot of people have been comparing it to older classic horror movies, and I do kind of see that it does sort of have that tone, and also from the way it was shot. There's a lot of slow zooms in this movie, and there's also a lot of pan shots, which I feel like we don't see much of anymore. The angles of the camera are beautiful because it doesn't just tell you where to look, but it actually gives you the option to be looking around. And because of the story, that is perfect because there are several moments where you can't help but to look around because you're looking for it. But anyways, before I keep rambling on and on about what I think about the movie, let's talk about what I believe it all means. And what better way to start than to start talking about the intro. The movie immediately starts out with a bang. This girl running out of her house in complete fear. You get the sense that she is being followed and trying to get away from something, which for a short period of time she actually does. What I want to point out about the intro is the last conversation that she has with her dad. She tells her dad that she loves him very much and that she loves her mother very much, and that she's sorry for sometimes not being a good kid. The thing that really caught my attention about this conversation is that she apologizes and then she explains how she does not know why she does that. After this scene, we are introduced to our main character, which is Jay. Not only is she swimming in her pool, but she is also being watched by 2 younger neighborhood boys. Whenever she goes inside the house, that's when we are recognized to the other main characters, which is her sister Kelly and her friends Paul and his younger sister Yara. This scene I think is really important because not only are we introduced to the characters, but we are also introduced to the setting. It is very obvious that time is irrelevant in this story. Some of the clothes that they're wearing does feel a bit modern, but also has that 70s or early 80s feel to it. The wallpaper definitely feels like the 60s, and their TVs seem to be even older than that. So the show that they're watching is like a really old sci-fi show, and Yara, which is the youngest in the room, is reading a book out of a clamshell, sort of looks like a phone. In this scene, not only do we see that Paul can be sort of shy or quiet, but we also see that he actually has a crush on Jay. We see that Jay and Kelly get along, they're good sisters. We also see that Yara, Paul's little sister, is a bit immature, which gives me the impression that she's the youngest one here. Not only does she pick on Paul by calling him an idiot, but she also ends up making a fart joke right before she actually farts. In my personal opinion, I believe this movie is about being young and entering adulthood. I think it also tries to explain the difference and how becoming an adult can sometimes be scary for some. Yes, we can always remember our past and remember our childhood, especially the wonderful memories, but it's always impossible to see our future. Whenever Jay goes on a date with Hugh, they play a people watching game. Hugh at this moment is the one one that is being followed, so of course his state of mind is in a different place than Jay's. Q says that if he could switch places with someone, it would be a little boy that he saw in the distance. And he said that the reason that he would switch with that boy is because he had his whole entire life ahead of him, because of the innocent. And knowing that he's the one being followed at this moment pretty much tells me that he's the one closer to death. Whenever they do have sex in the back of Hugh's car, instead of sitting in the back seat and cuddling and talking about random things, but instead she talks about her childhood and points out how she had envisioned herself being an adult. A few scenes after, you hear Jay's mom sitting in the kitchen with Greg's mom, who is the older character that lives across the street. And while they're talking, the camera slowly moves towards a wall that's covered with pictures. In these pictures, we see Jay as a little kid with other family members. Jay does spend some time staring at herself in the mirror. I think the reason she's staring at herself in the mirror is because she is actually questioning whether or not there is a change. I strongly believe that she does feel a change, but she doesn't really know what it is. And like I said, in my opinion, this change is her becoming an adult. I believe that the reason sex is used to portray that is because for a lot of teenagers, having sex can be a very mature thing. I mean, I know that all of our parents told us to not have sex till we get married and have gone to school and college and have a good paying job. But truth be told, in this day and age, things are just a little tiny bit different. She does find out for sure that she is in fact being followed when she goes to school and she sees that creepy old lady at a distance, which is another thing that makes this movie awesome. She wasn't sitting on her desk and this old lady just pops out of nowhere behind her, but instead we see her whenever Jay sees her. We see her outside the window from a distance. As the camera slowly zooms in, we see her slowly moving towards us. With Jay's reaction and with the amazing score, this scene just becomes extremely intense. In the next scene, Jay goes to Paul and Kelly and explains everything to them. And even though throughout the whole entire movie you have Kelly, Paul, and Yara together, in this scene they are not. And I think the reason she's not in this scene is because this is a mature conversation. Like I said earlier, Yara is a little bit more immature. She is the youngest in this circle, and what they're talking about is sort of something that she might not really understand, because she is the one farthest away from adulthood. They all agree to spend the night together to make Jay feel safe. And the thing that I want to point out about this scene is that while Jay and Paul are sitting on the couch alone together, they are talking about their childhood. And again, they talk about how innocent they were and how they grew up together. I'm sure we already know that she does end up getting chased out of her house by that really tall guy that I'm sure made everyone piss their pants out of fear. What I thought was interesting was that out of all the places she could go, she decides to go to the park. We've already seen Greg that lives across the street. We know that they have to at least know each other because we saw their moms talking to each other earlier. We've also seen that there are in fact a lot of kids that live in this neighborhood. It is late at night, and out of all the places that she could go, she decides to go to the park, which is a very open space. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the reason she goes to the park is because that is where she feels safe. The reason she feels safe going there right now is because she's trying to connect with her childhood. It's obvious that this thing that is following you is going to represent death, because if it does get you, it is going to kill you. Of course, all of her friends show up at the park along with Greg, who offers to help. Greg, kindly enough, drives all of them around to find Hugh for more answers. They do end up finding Hugh. They find his home. They find out that his real name is Jeff, and they go to his backyard to talk. In this scene, there was something that I noticed. Yara, again, because I think she's the youngest, sort of seemed like she wasn't really into everything that was going on. And Greg openly asked if all of this was just a game. Of course, Kelly does care because she's Jay's sister. And I noticed that Paul, even though he's the weakest and the quietest, cares a lot more than anybody else. Not only because they are closer in age, but because he has a crush on her. They go to the beach to unwind, which brings up another thing that I noticed. The scene whenever it shows up, I noticed that Yara was in the water swimming and playing like a younger person would. You see Kelly laying down on a towel on the sand. She actually looks relaxed. And you see Paul actually sitting down with Jay, and he looks extremely worried for her. In this very moment, that's when everyone sees that there is something in fact following them, which of course causes a natural freak out. Whenever she's at the hospital and decides to pass it on to Greg by having sex with him, the look that she has on her face just lets me know that she is definitely not into it. She could have had sex with Paul, but she knows that Paul has feelings for her, and she doesn't want to hurt him, knowing that the only reason she would be having sex with him is to pass it on. As we already know, she locks herself in her room once again for days, and she doesn't come out of her house till Greg gets murdered. Which means that now that Greg is dead, it comes back to her. Whenever Jay and Paul are sitting down in her bedroom floor, once again they talk about their childhood, and they talk about where they used to swim when they were kids. They plan to go to their childhood pool, where I assume her dad used to take her. In the beginning of the movie, whenever Jay was getting ready for her date, on her mirror not only was there a picture of her dad, but there was also a picture of her in a pool. And if you think about it, we actually see Jay around water a lot. Maybe it's something that reminds her of her dad. Maybe it's a comfort thing for her, sort of like a blanket would be for a child. During this pool thing, there was something else that I noticed. Throughout the whole entire movie, this thing seems to walk around everyone else that is in the room or in that certain area. Nobody else can see it, so of course nobody else could ever know that it is there. But we do know that it can touch objects. We see that right before Greg dies, whenever the image of his mom is knocking on his door. We see it whenever Paul gets hit with the chair, and we see it whenever Jay's hair gets pulled up. What I noticed about this scene is that whenever Paul is trying to shoot it is actually trying to either grab or push Paul away. Whenever it is following you, all of its attention is on you. Therefore, this image of Jay's dad is focused on Jay, but his hand is clearly trying to get to Paul, which makes me think back of whenever Jay was in her room and the really tall guy was walking through the door to get to Jay. It didn't push Yara out of the way. It didn't knock the door down. It didn't do anything. It clearly slowly walked in the room and walked around Yara. Also, whenever Jay is in Greg's house, it looks directly at Jay, who is standing at the end of the hallway, looks at her, and then goes about its business, knocking on Greg's door. But again, at the lake house, whenever Paul picks up the chair and actually hits it, it hits back. And I believe the reason it actually tries to attack Paul and is the only one that tries to attack Paul is because Paul is the one that actually loves Jay. Not only loves Jay, out of all the characters, believes her the most. He's believed every single word that Jay has been saying since the beginning. And Paul, because he's the one that cares the most and loves her the most and feels mostly protective for her, is the one that kills it. We've already seen it get shot. We already know that it cannot necessarily be harmed. But in this scene, not only do we see it get shot in the head, but we see the pool overflow with blood. I believe that Jay saw something. I believe that something happened in that water that caused all of that blood. He then decides to sleep with Paul, and after having sex, they question each other whether or not they feel any difference. And the reason I think they say no is because one, they've already become adults, and two is because this time love is involved. Every time someone is having sex with someone else, it's always for selfish reasons. They're doing it because they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to pass it along to the next person. Whenever Paul and Jay go visit Yara at the hospital because Paul accidentally shot her in the leg, Yara is sitting on her hospital bed and she's reading something to them out loud. And what she is reading explains how one can have many fears for things that we don't know or understand, like death, and how a person might fear not knowing when death is coming, but also how the biggest fear could be knowing the fact that it's coming, which is something that a child doesn't know or understand yet. But once you mature and you become an adult, that is something that we are all extremely aware of. Another theory that I want to throw out there is that yes, we already know that it can change forms, but I believe that it changes forms according to you, where your mind or heart is at. I think that whenever Jay first sees it, whenever Hugh is explaining everything to her and she's tied to the chair, I believe that that is actually Hugh's mom. Because it was first following Hugh, it is still in the form of his mom because he was most likely thinking about her last. Just like Greg was most likely thinking about his mom because of the loud knocking on his door, he thought it was his mom, therefore he saw his mom. And right before that, Jay was looking outside of her window thinking about Greg and his safety, therefore she saw Greg breaking into his own house. Whenever they were at the lake house, it came in the form of Yara, which means she was obviously thinking about Yara while she was looking at her swimming in the water. And of course, we already know Paul is the one that mentioned that they used to go to that pool whenever they were little kids. And of course, a kid cannot take them across the town, which can only mean that her parents, if not just her dad, took her there a lot, which is why she thought of her dad whenever she was there. And I don't know how many of you guys noticed, but the old man on the roof was actually her grandpa. While the two moms were talking in the kitchen, you see a picture of her with her grandpa on the wall, which is the exact same man that was standing on the roof. Another reason why I think that this movie is about being a child and entering adulthood is because if you took away the horror elements, it would feel a lot like a coming of age story. And I don't know about you guys, but I believe that in the end, it is no longer following them. Now we see an image of them walking on the sidewalk, and we also see someone or something following them from behind. But if you pay close attention, this person is not necessarily wearing what the other its were. And if you pay closer attention, it's actually looking away from them instead of directly focusing on what it is following. I'm sure we've already heard that love conquers all. This is only my theory. These are only my thoughts. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that I am right. This is just what I got out of it. So either way, whether you agree or disagree with me, make sure you leave your comments down below and let me know what you think the movie was really about. But as always, thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you like, subscribe for more videos, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you for watching Guerra Movie House. Like, comment, and subscribe for my videos. Peace out, homies.